Our list of 10 essential indie Metroidvanias to play before you die turned out to be a pretty popular one with our viewers, so here's a list of 10 more essential indie Metroidvanias that fans of the genre need to experience. All of the games listed here are considered to be amongst the best of the best in the style, and while certain subgenres within Metroidvanias may not appeal to all players, for one example, those who dislike Souls-likes probably won't like a Souls-like Metroidvania no matter how great it is, these are still considered to be amongst the best of that subgenre that fans will very likely enjoy. Here we go, 10 more must-play Metroidvanias that showcase some of the different substyles of the genre. And hey, real quick, be sure to support independent content like this over at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to gain Discord access and more. Like and subscribe to the video if you want to see more great indie gaming goodness, and twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames every Thursday for live streams. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. At the top of this list, we're going to start with a game developed and published by Thomas Happ Games, Axiom Verge. This one has players controlling a scientist named Trace. He wakes up in a strange alien world after a lab accident. Having no idea where he is, he's guided by a mysterious woman's voice to where he finds an Axiom Disruptor. This is a laser gun capable of damaging enemies as well as clearing out certain environmental obstacles. It also allows him to begin his adventure to discover where he is and how he can survive in this strange and hostile world. A great atmosphere is created by a synth soundtrack that matches the theme, mixing sci-fi with biohorror. Axiom Verge is one of the best sci-fi games in the Metroidvania genre, and its sequel deserves an honorable mention as well. While the sequel did get a more mixed reception because it took a lot of risks, I still think it's very much worth playing, and because both of the Axiom Verge games have been bundled together as both physical and digital releases, that's a convenient way to experience both of them. Axiom Verge is available digitally for $19.99 on PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox consoles, as well as in combo releases with Axiom Verge 2 for $34.99 on Xbox consoles. Physical copies of Axiom Verge on the Switch tend to range from $25 to $60 depending on which release you get, and copies of the PS4 version tend to range between $20 and $45 depending upon the release. The combo release of Axiom Verge 1 and 2 on the Switch usually goes in the $50 to $80 range depending on whether you get it used or new. Next up, some viewers might remember Rabby Ribby from a previous Metroidvania list, and here's another game from the same developer. Developed by Cray Spirit, Gemayu, and Ian Lee, and published by Cray Spirit and Neverland Entertainment, TEVI takes the idea of having one character do the platforming and melee combat, and another that does ranged attacks, similar to the ones that were featured in Rabby Ribby, but they take everything to another level here. The protagonist TEVI is joined by the angel Celia and the demon Sable, who provide different kinds of ranged attacks, and it's easy to switch between them with the press of a shoulder button. With there being an emphasis on ranged attacks both from the player and from enemies, there are some bullet hell elements present, especially during the boss fights. While the description might get some players running the opposite direction of this title, fear not, because there are multiple difficulty options and you can make this one extremely easy on the lowest difficulty setting, where getting hit by a projectile does next to no damage. For those seeking a challenge, you can also make this game very difficult on the highest setting, so this is a game that can appeal to players of all skill levels. TEVI is available digitally for PC, $29.99, and for $34.99 on the Switch, PS4, PS5, and Xbox consoles. It's available for $39.99 physically for Switch and PS5. This next one has been featured on I Dream of Indie Games' Best Indie Games of All Time series, and it's so good that I'm going to cover it again here. Developed and published by Ska Studios, Salt and Sanctuary merges the intense combat and strategic character building of a Souls-like action RPG with the platforming and exploration of a Metroidvania to create a compelling and memorable experience. Originally released in 2016, Salt and Sanctuary is one of the first examples of a game in the Souls-like Metroidvania subgenre, and it shows the game's strength in that it is still one of the best in that style, with visuals mixing Ska Studios' distinctive punk-influenced comic book style with imagery from grimdark fantasy and gothic horror. The game has a very unique look that might not click with every gamer, but is beloved by those who enjoy it. The challenge is turned up to 11 here, with brutal but engaging and satisfying combat, and exploration of a harsh world without the benefit of a map to guide you. If the lack of a map is a deal breaker for you, it might be encouraging for you to know that there are plenty of fan-made maps online for you to reference if you need one. From the impact this game has had, Salt and Sanctuary has become something of a legendary name in the indie scene, and it really does live up to what that status would imply. If you're into Souls-like games and Metroidvanias, this is an absolute must-play. Salt and Sanctuary is available digitally for $17.99 for PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. It also had limited physical releases for Switch and PS4, and both of those typically go in the $150 to $200 range on the collector's market, so good luck getting one. Next is a Golden Genie Lamp winner right here at I Dream of Indie Games, and it's 9 Years of Shadows, which is developed by Halberd Studios and published by Indie.io. Players will control Europa, who has ventured into a dormant fortress in the form of a mechanical giant called Talos, where she seeks to find the source of a curse plaguing her land and bring it to an end. On her journey, she meets Apino, a small floating bear who joins her and who has the ability to heal and perform magical attacks that can also break environmental obstacles. Using Apino's abilities costs points from your light bar, which is also your HP, but when your light gets really low, Apino can heal you and give you more light. This mechanic gives the combat a refreshing, unique feel, especially during the boss fights where there's a risk and reward factor regarding the option to heal. The themes of colors and music also play heavily into the story. The curse is draining color from the world, and the use of magical musical instruments can break parts of the curse and restore colors to the areas that have been freed from it. If you are looking for something that is outside of the norm in the genre in both how it looks and plays, and that also executes what it attempts to do well, then I would definitely recommend checking out 9 Years of Shadows. It's available digitally for PC and Switch at $19.99. Developed by Team Ladybug and WSS Playground and published by WSS Playground and Playism, Record of Lodoss War-Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth follows the elf Deedlit in an original story that takes place many years after the events in the series it's based upon. Deedlit finds herself in a strange place where she encounters both friends and enemies from her past, some of whom should be dead, and she explores a dungeon in an attempt to make sense of what's going on and to find out if those who have died have truly returned to life. This is one of the best Metroidvanias in the Igavania style that adds an interesting twist with its element system. Deedlit can alternate between the elements of fire and wind, and she will give or take damage depending on the elemental nature of the enemy. If you haven't played the shoot-'em-up classic Ikaruga, the elemental system works rather similar to that one, and the developers have cited that game as a direct influence on Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth. While it is on the short end of the genre at about 5 to 6 hours to complete, it's still a sweet and satisfying experience filled with fun and engaging boss fights and puzzles that are some of the best that you'll find in a Metroidvania. Record of Lodoss War-Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth is available digitally for $19.99 on PC and for $24.99 for Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. Physical copies of the PS4 and PS5 release generally go in the $25 to $35 range, and Switch copies are usually in the $35 to $50 range. Next up is another Golden Genie Lamp winner here at I Dream of Indie Games. Developed by Old Moon and published by Humble Games, Ghost Song begins with an armored humanoid entity known as the Dead Suit, which awakens from its slumber on a strange moon and soon discovers both corpses and survivors of a crew of a wrecked spaceship. Having experienced memory loss upon awakening, Dead Suit begins to explore the terrain of the moon and offers aid to the surviving crew with the hope that doing so might help her find a lead to discovering her identity and purpose. Dead Suit can use both ranged attacks using an arm cannon and melee attacks using a blade, which is implemented in an interesting way. The arm cannon can fire rapidly, but doing so for too long within a short amount of time will cause it to overheat, and the amount of damage it does decreases whenever this happens. However, the power of the melee weapon increases while the arm cannon is overheated, which encourages a strategic mix of alternating between weapons to do the most damage possible. This system adds some tension to the combat, but in a good way, especially during boss fights. The audio and visual presentation are also outstanding here, with gorgeous hand-drawn visuals and a melancholy soundtrack that works together to give the game a gloomy atmosphere that lives up to its name. Ghost Song is really excellent on every level, and it's a must-play for fans of this genre. Ghost Song is available digitally for $19.99 on PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. Physical copies are usually in the $30 to $35 range for the PS4, PS5, and Switch releases. Here is one that has been mentioned in the comments many times in our previous Metroidvania videos, and for good reason. Developed and published by Aeterna Game Studio, Aeterna Noctis mixes Metroidvania exploration with precision platforming to create a unique and challenging experience. The world of Aeterna and its inhabitants were created by a god named Chaos, but his creations would soon turn against him. They wanted to take the world for themselves themselves and control their own destiny, so Chaos responded by cursing their leaders. Designating one the King of Darkness and the other the Queen of Light, he condemned them to being forced to fight against each other for eternity. Players will control the King of Darkness as he attempts to change his fate. While there is a bigger emphasis on platforming here than in most Metroidvanias, it mixes well with the action and exploration, and for those who don't care for precision platforming, there's an alternate difficulty setting that greatly reduces that element and should make the game much more accessible. Even in the mode with reduced platforming, Aeterna Noctis will still be on the more difficult end of games in the Metroidvania genre, but it's also one of the most satisfying for those who are up to the challenge. Aeterna Noctis is available digitally for $29.99 on PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. Physical copies are normally in the $45 to $60 range for PS4, PS5, and Switch. Our next game isn't just a hidden gem in the genre, but a hidden classic that deserves a lot more recognition. Developed and published by Glass Heart Games, Vigil: The Longest Night is a Souls-like Metroidvania that is strong in both atmosphere and gameplay. Players will control Layla, a member of the Vigilant Order who is sworn to protect people from the threat of monsters as she tracks down threats around her village and begins to discover a sinister secret linked to recent events that have been troubling the people. The music and visuals match the theme and gameplay really well, with music that can change from eerie and melancholy to energetic and intense to indicate that a lot of fighting is about to happen in a certain area. The monster designs are wonderfully grotesque and they will stick in your memory long after you've played the game. The combat is challenging and engaging, which creates a feeling of tension that fits well with the idea of fighting horrific monsters. However, Vigil itself seems to have encountered adversity on a level similar to that in the game. It was previously available digitally for both PC and Switch, but went through a period where it was delisted due to legal reasons from a government attempting to censor a planned DLC for the game. Fortunately, Glass Heart Games has won multiple legal battles, and the game is now available again for PC, though the Switch version remains unavailable for the time being. Hopefully the Switch version will become available again, and the planned physical release from Super Rare Games can become a reality. If you're a fan of Souls-like Metroidvanias, Vigil: The Longest Night is one of the best, and you can currently purchase it for $21.99 on PC. Getting down there now, and I thought I would switch things up a little bit by including a DLC. Yes, this is a DLC to one of the games on our previous Top 10 Metroidvanias list that is a separate game of its own. Developed by Artplay and published by 505 Games, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Dominique's Curse plays like a tribute to the proto-Metroidvania Castlevania II: Simon's Quest. It follows Dominique's story after the events of Ritual of the Night as she travels through Limbo seeking to obtain the power of a great demon. Her main attack is a whip-like weapon that can be upgraded through purchasing items, and she can also purchase skills and HP and MP upgrades from merchants, as well as obtaining some skills from defeating a boss in a dungeon. There is a day and night cycle system regarding phases of the moon, and it functions similarly to the one in Simon's Quest. Different enemies will be present during the dead moon phase of a cycle, and towns will be filled with hostile enemies instead of peaceful NPCs you can talk to. Of course, there will also be more dangerous enemies present at this time, so it may be necessary to play more defensively during those moments, and be aware that time does not pass while you're indoors. You can use this to your advantage by making sure to enter a dungeon during a full moon so the enemies won't be as strong inside. If you are someone who is both a fan of the Bloodstained games and Simon's Quest, then Dominique's Curse is highly recommended. It's a blast to play from beginning to end with both great retro and modern gameplay elements. While this is a full game in itself, it is technically a DLC to Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, so you will need to own that game in order to play Dominique's Curse. You can get this DLC for $9.99 on PC, PS4, and Xbox One and Series X and S, and it will work regardless of whether you have a digital or physical copy of Ritual of the Night. Unfortunately, it's not yet available on the Switch. If you have seen my previous list of 10 essential Metroidvanias, it probably would be no surprise to see this next game here. Developed by the Game Kitchen and published by Team 17, Blasphemous took the concept of the Souls-like Metroidvania to a higher level when it was released, and it's still one of the most impressive indies that I've played to this day. The story follows the Penitent One as he seeks to relieve the suffering of the people in the land of Custodia that is caused by a godlike being known as the Miracle. The game begins with the Penitent One being brought back from death and given the sword Mea Culpa that will aid him on his quest. There are heaping mounds of corpses around, and there is an immediate boss fight, so this lets you know what kind of game you're getting into. Blasphemous is beautiful and brutal, both in presentation and gameplay, with some of the greatest pixel art I've seen in a game, and very challenging and engaging combat. In making a case for video games being a form of art, Blasphemous would be a great example with its impressive presentation and deep lore about the miracle and how it relates to people's desires to cause or relieve suffering. Blasphemous excels on every level and is not only one of the greatest 2D Souls-like and Metroidvanias ever, but it's also one of the greatest indie games as well. I'll also give an honorable mention to Blasphemous 2 here, which is an amazing sequel, and you can learn more about that in the review right here at I Dream of Indie Games. Blasphemous is available digitally for $24.99 for PC, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. Physical copies of Blasphemous have gotten really pricey lately, and they generally go anywhere between $75 and $120 for the Switch, PS4, and Xbox One releases. Thank you for watching another list with us. What are some of your favorite Metroidvanias that you think represent the best that the genre has to offer? Please let us know in the comments, and we look forward to hearing from you. Be sure to like and subscribe, as well as to become a member of our Patreon over at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to get amazing perks like Discord access, early ad-free shows, and so much more. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you, and voice to the voiceless.